What is up, guys? Welcome to the channel. My name's Micah, and today I'm going to show you how to get to the gas tank, the airbox, and the ECU on a 2008 CBR1000RR. So I'm going to walk you through this process step by step. We'll go through the tools needed, and everything about this is super easy. So without further ado, let's rip into it. So our gas tank, airbox, and the ECU module is all going to be underneath this cover. So this whole thing isn't just your gas tank. The gas tank's under there, but it's got a few different things under there, and then this cover is held on by a couple bolts on the front, a couple bolts on the rear. So to get to these rear bolts, we're going to need to take the driver's seat off. So to do that, you're going to have these little triangle shaped black pieces of plastic here. They just pop in. There's a rubber grommet. You don't have a plastic tool like I do here to kind of pry this out. You can use a flat blade screwdriver, but be very careful so you don't scratch stuff up. Maybe set a rag down here so you can kind of pry against that. But with this little plastic tool, you should just be able to kind of get in here and, yep, pull that out just like so. There we go. There's one little tab there, but yeah, it's just one little stud there that goes into this plastic grommet. And then the bolt for the seat, actually, I think it's supposed to be an Allen head, and we totally have a Phillips head bolt right there. Well, and I better get you down here so you can see that better. But just to the right, or to the rear, I guess I'll say, of where that rubber grommet is, that's going to be your seat bolt right there. So we're just going to do the same thing to the other side here. Just kind of pry up. There we go. Our other piece is out, exposing our seat bolt here. So let me just grab a Phillips head screwdriver, I guess, for ours. But I do think that from the factory, there is supposed to be a 5mm hex bolt right there. All right, one bolt is out. Now the other one is out, so we should just be able to kind of lift the front up and slide it forward. Voila, there we go. It has just some tabs in the back, and then those front studs right there. That's what your nut's gonna be in, that those bolts go through. And so with that seat off, now that exposes these rear bolts on our big cover here. So those are the rear ones. Up on the front, we're just gonna have two, one on either side there as well. And then these will all be, oh man, those are on there tight. Yikes. I don't think this has maybe ever been removed. Well, and then to get those front ones, we'll see if they're on just as tight. Yep, they totally are. Holy moly. Gosh, I can't believe that. And then you kind of just wiggle this cover a little bit back and forth, kind of pull out your sides a little because there's some little clips and tabs and stuff. Make sure we get her all off. And voila. Yeah, so there's not any studs on the back of that or rubber grommets, you know, that they go in. It's just kind of little wings and tabs and stuff. So kind of just pulling that outwards and kind of wiggling it around, it pops right off. All right, so now with the cover off, we have clear access to the fuel tank. So you can see that that fuel tank only comes to here. And then under this little cover here, you can see that our ECU sits right on top of the airbox there. So this gas tank here, it's held on by 4 bolts. There's going to be 2, one on either side in the rear, and then one on either side up more towards the front. So I'm just going to remove these 2 front bolts here. We'll take those out, and our tank should just pivot on those back 2 bolts that I can kind of stand that up a little bit so I have better access to get to my ECU and airbox. So the front bolts are out on either side. In theory, we should just be able to pick this up. This is pretty full of gas. That always makes things more interesting. I'm just going to take the handle, and you could use a little wooden dowel or a piece of board or something, but I'm just going to set it in here, and then I'll set this gas tank down against it. So that's going to perfectly hold that up and out of the way for us. And then with this little cover here, it's kind of just like a heat shield, but there's just little tabs and there's little cutouts, so you can kind of just pull this down and around all of the little spots where that clips in. There we go. Well, and to kind of show you this better as we get in here, so the ECM is right here, has a couple connectors to it. There's a little plastic bracket that goes along here. It has a couple connectors that are attached to little parts here. These little red tabs you can kind of just pull out with your finger, and then you can slide those connectors off. There's going to be two little Phillips screws here. One on either side, the other one's kind of right under this connector. That's why I have to remove the connectors. And then we'll take those two little Phillips head screws out. That will remove this bracket, and then our ECM or ECU should just pull right up and we can unhook that. So and with that little wire harness out of the way here, get to our one little screw. Perfecto. And then the other one, you don't really need to move any of those harnesses. Voila! So then I can kind of just leave the other side in place, just pick up one side, and there's our ECM. It's totally loose now, so to unhook this, you just press down on this tab. Well, I'm gonna need both hands. Kind of press down on that tab, and there's a lot of pins in these connectors, so you really have to kind of wiggle them back and forth. There we go. See how many pins are in that? Do the same to the other one. Voila! And that is our computer totally out. All right, so now with the ECU off, if we needed to get to the air filter, well, which we do, I'm gonna unhook the rest of these connectors here. There we go, one, unhook that one. Then the little button to depress, it was hidden by that brown one. So now you can press on this little button, wiggle this baby around, and then the white one comes apart. And then to take off this airbox lid, this airbox cover here, it's going to be 1 Phillips, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then there is a 6th one under those harnesses, just right down there. All right, and so now with all of our screws out there, we can just take this lid right on off. You can kind of pull out your little harnesses out of the way there, and I'll give you a little peeky in there. So that is going to be your air filter right there. Those will be the velocity stacks just behind there. Now there is going to be a little plastic bracket. It's hard for you to kind of see it in the sunlight here, but there's little screws holding this bracket in. First one is going to be right over here, up in the right corner. 2. That should release our air filter. And then they have little housings here that won't let those screws like move up and fall out, so they'll stay in there. You just loosen them all the way, and then it's just 3 tabs on the bottom here are what hold that in. So not too bad of a job, right? Really all you need is just that 5mm hex key, and then just a Phillips screwdriver for fuel tank removal, airbox, filter change, to get to the ECM. So yeah, so I think that'll be all I do for this video, and then I'm actually digging deeper because I'm gonna do the spark plugs as well in this. So I've got to take off this fuel rail. I've got to completely remove the airbox here before I'll be able to see those spark plugs. So I've got plenty work ahead of me today. Well, and so I will try and show you guys how to remove the whole gas tank as well. There's just not going to be a great angle that I can show you, but if you look on your main fuel line where it comes in down here, there's a little plastic cover. It's covering a connector. So with a little flat blade, I'm just going to press down on that, and it should pop it down off of there. Yep. And then I can pull it off completely. So that's what I was talking about, just that little plastic cover. It just clicks up over that main line. With a needle nose, you will just turn that fuel line kind of so you're looking at it from the side, so you can see both of those wings. And then if you can get your needle nose in there, you can pinch both of them at the same time. Voila! It is unhooked. Slide a couple of my other lines off here, so there is another one off. And now just our electrical connectors there, you just push in a tab and pull it out. And keep in mind that brown one is going to be on the driver's side. Brown is on the driver, black will be on the passenger. And then our whole fuel tank is unhooked here, so now we can just take out our rear bolts. I'll just set this back down for now. Well, and we already know that these are gonna be on super freaking tight. And I'll try and support this gas tank here from the rear. I put the bolts back in the front here. I don't know if you can see that, and that works really good because then it kind of just sits on the mounts up there. Kind of takes weight off the rear here, so I can move the rear with just a finger, which will be nice because then when I have those bolts out, I should just be able to tip this gas tank up and then pull straight out. And it works like a charm. There we go.